Family said I didn't help them enough and made me pay brother's rent. When my grandmom opened my eyes, I stopped funding and gathered the whole family to say, I've always believed in family first. Maybe that's why when I started making good money, I didn't think twice about sharing it. I paid my parents' mortgage, helped my brother Lenny with his car payments, and even paid my grandmother's medical bills. Lenny's wife, Kelly, wasn't shy about asking for help, either small things at first, like groceries or school supplies for their kids. Eventually, it became bigger requests: rent, utility bills, even a vacation they couldn't afford. I told myself it was okay. I had it, and they needed it. But last Christmas Eve, things reached a breaking point. We were all at my parents' house. The table was set, the tree was lit, the kids were running around. It should have been one of those warm, happy family moments, but the vibe was off. I noticed it right away. My parents were unusually quiet. Lenny kept avoiding my eyes, and Kelly had this smug little grin on her face like she already knew how the night was going to go. After dinner, my mother cleared her throat. Mike, she began, we've been talking, and we think it's time you started doing a little more for the family. I blinked. More? What do you mean? She exchanged glances with my dad, who nodded silently. Then she said, Lenny and Kelly are having trouble. They can't keep up with their rent, and it's causing problems between them. Kelly is very upset. Kelly chimed in. Yeah, it's been really hard. I've told Lenny 100 times that he needs to work something out, but dash. She shot him a look. Dash. Well, here we are. My mom cut in before I could answer. We think you should help. Pay the rent for a while. It's the least you can do after all we've done for you. I sat there stunned. I wanted to remind her of the mortgage payments, the bills I've covered, the vacations I've paid for. But before I could, she dropped the bomb. If you don't, she said, her tone cold and final, then maybe you should just go. Have Christmas alone this year. My dad nodded again, as if that was perfectly reasonable. Kelly looked more smug than ever. Lenny just stared down at the table. I looked over at my grandmother. She was sitting quietly in the corner, sipping tea, her face unreadable. For a moment I thought she was going to say something, but she didn't. It felt like everyone in the room was against me. So I gave in. I said I'd pay Lenny's rent. And just like that, the mood changed. My parents smiled, Kelly gushed about how grateful they were, and Lenny finally looked up from the table. I felt like I'd just bought everyone's approval, and it left a bitter taste in my mouth. That night, as I was getting ready to leave, my grandmother grabbed my arm. Mike, come to my house tomorrow. I have something to tell you, she said quietly. I didn't know it then, but that conversation would change everything. The day after Christmas, I went to my grandmother's house. She lived in the small, cozy bungalow that she and my grandfather had bought decades before. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers, and it always felt like walking into a safe haven. She greeted me at the door, looking sharp as ever in her knit cardigan. Come on in, Mike, she said, leading me into the kitchen. There was a fresh pot of coffee brewing and a plate of her famous oatmeal cookies on the table. We made small talk for a while about the kids, the coming blizzard, and the state of her garden. But I could tell she had something on her mind. Finally, she pushed the cookies aside and looked me straight in the eye. Mike, she began, we need to talk about what happened last night. I sighed. What about it, Grandma? I agreed to help. Everybody's happy now, right? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she shook her head slowly, as if disappointed but not surprised. Do you think they're really happy? Or are they just happy they got what they wanted? That caught me off guard. What do you mean? She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. I mean they're using you. And last night they didn't just use your kindness, they manipulated you. Told you to leave if you didn't help? That's not family, Mike. That's blackmail. I didn't know what to say. You're a good man, she went on. Too good if you asked me. You've been helping them out of love, but they've started to expect it, like it's your responsibility instead of a choice you make. That's not right. I stared down at my coffee cup. I just want to take care of everyone. Isn't that what family is supposed to do? There's nothing wrong with helping, she said, her voice firm. But there is something wrong with being taken for granted. And last night, when they told you you'd have to celebrate Christmas alone if you didn't give in? That was cruel. You don't deserve that. Hearing her say it out loud was like a slap in the face. I'd been telling myself I was doing the right thing for so long that I hadn't stopped to think about how they were treating me. They're adults, Mike, she continued. If Lenny can't pay his rent, he needs to figure it out for himself. If Kelly has a problem with that, she needs to support him, not blame you. And as for your parents, Dash. She paused, choosing her words carefully. They've gotten too comfortable leaning on you instead of standing on their own 2 feet. I took a long breath. So what are you saying? I should stop helping altogether? She smiled gently. I'm saying you need to set limits. It's your life, your money. You've worked hard for it. Don't let guilt or pressure make you forget that. We sat in silence for a moment, letting her words sink in. Then she reached across the table and patted my hand. You've done more than enough, Mike. Now it's their turn to step up. As I drove home that night, I couldn't stop replaying her words in my head. For the first time in years, I began to see things clearly. My family didn't need more of my money, they needed a wake-up call. And I was finally ready to give it to them. The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. By the time I got home that night, I'd made up my mind, things had to change. I wasn't going to let my family continue to use me, no matter how much guilt they tried to throw my way. I called my parents first. My mom picked up. Hey Mom. I need everyone to meet at your house tonight. You, Dad, Lenny, Kelly, everyone. There was a pause, then she asked. What is this about? Just trust me, I said. I'll explain when I get there. And Grandma is coming, too. She hesitated, but finally agreed. Next, I called my grandmother to let her know. She didn't ask many questions, she just said she'd be there. Somehow that gave me the reassurance I needed. By 7 p.m., we were all crammed into my parents' living room. The Christmas decorations were still up, and the smell of pine hung in the air. My mom sat on the couch next to my dad, who looked confused but concerned. Lenny and Kelly were on the love seat, Kelly scrolling through her phone like she had somewhere better to be. My grandmother sat in the recliner, her expression calm but alert. I stood near the door, taking it all in. For a moment, I wondered if I was making a mistake. But then I thought of all the times I'd bent over backwards for her, only to be told it wasn't enough. That memory gave me the push I needed. So, I began. I've been doing a lot of thinking since last night. And I need to get some things off my chest. My mother's eyebrows knit together. Mike, what's going on? Why are we all here? I held up a hand. Just let me finish. I turned to Lenny first. You and Kelly are having trouble with the rent, right? Lenny nodded slowly while Kelly crossed her arms. Well, I helped you out because I thought I was making things easier for you. But the truth is, I've been enabling you. You've both been relying on me instead of finding solutions for yourselves. That ends now. Kelly's head snapped up. Wait, what? I didn't let her interrupt. Lenny, you're my brother and I love you. But you're a grown man. If you need more money, get a second job. If that's not enough, downsize. Move to a smaller place. Do whatever you need to do, but stop expecting me to bail you out. The room fell silent. My mother opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. And you too, I said, turning to my parents. I helped you with everything from the mortgage to groceries to home repairs. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. But last night, when you told me that if I didn't help Lenny, I would have to celebrate Christmas alone, that wasn't just hurtful, it was manipulative. And I won't stand for it anymore. My dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while my mom's face turned red. Finally, I turned back to Kelly. And you? You've been sitting back, letting Lenny and me carry all the weight while you do nothing but complain. If you care so much about your family's finances, Maybe it's time you stepped up and contributed more." Her jaw dropped, but she didn't say anything. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. "I've spent years putting your needs ahead of my own. But from now on, things will be different. I'm going to help when I can and when I want to, not because I feel guilty about it. You're all adults. It's time to start acting like it." For a long moment, no one spoke. My parents looked stunned, Lenny looked embarrassed, and Kelly just glared at me like I'd insulted her entire existence. The only person who didn't look shocked was my grandmother. She smiled at me, a small knowing smile, and gave a single nod. After I finished speaking, the room fell silent. My family sat there stunned, as if they couldn't believe what they had just heard. I was about to wrap things up and leave when my grandmother, who'd been sitting quietly the whole time, cleared her throat. "Before we end this little meeting," she said, her voice calm but firm, "there is something I need to say as well." I turned to look at her, confused. "Grandmother?" She looked around the room, her eyes landing on my parents, then Lenny and Kelly. "You've all been using Mike for years. That much is obvious. But what you don't know, what none of you know, is that I've been keeping a little secret of my own." My mother frowned. "What are you talking about?" Grandma leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. "Mike, do you remember when your grandfather died? He left me a little something. Not much, but enough to get by." "Of course," I said, not understanding where this was going. "Well," she continued, her voice dropping, "about 5 years ago, your parents came to see me. They said they were having financial difficulties. They asked for a loan, said they'd pay it back as soon as they could." My mother's face turned pale. "I didn't think much of it at the time," Grandma said, "because I wanted to help. So I gave them the money. But they never paid me back. And as the years went by, I noticed something. The more you help them, the less they seem to care about paying me back. It's as if they thought your money was a free pass to ignore their debts." I stared at her, stunned. How much did they owe? Her eyes locked with my mom's. $30,000. 30,000? I nearly choked. My mom stammered. It wasn't like that. We were going through a hard time, and we needed Dash." Grandma held up a hand to stop her. "Don't even try it, Linda. I've heard all the excuses. And now that I've seen how you've treated Mike, I realize that you never intended to repay me. You were just hoping I'd forget." The room fell silent. My dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch, while my mom kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. "Grandma, why didn't you tell me this before?" I asked, still trying to process what I'd just heard. She gave me a sad smile. "Because I didn't want to cause any trouble. But after what they pulled last night, I can't keep quiet anymore. They deserve to know the truth." I turned to my parents, my anger boiling over. "So let me get this straight. Not only have you been taking my money for years, but you owe Grandma 30 grand? And you have the nerve to tell me that I'm not helping out enough?" My mom tried to answer, but I wasn't having it. "No," I said, cutting her off. "I'm done. Done with the guilt, done with the manipulation, done with all of it. You can do this on your own." I looked at my grandmother, who gave me a small nod of agreement. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control. The tension in the room was suffocating. My parents sat there, visibly panicked, while my brother and Kelly exchanged awkward glances. My grandmother remained calm, watching as if she'd been waiting for this moment. I turned to Lenny. "Did you know about this? That Mom and Dad owed Grandma 30 grand? He shook his head quickly. "No, man, I swear I didn't know." Kelly muttered under her breath. "I'm not surprised." "What was that?" I snapped, narrowing my eyes at her. She looked up and shrugged like she didn't care. I said, "It doesn't surprise me. Your parents have always been, shall we say, creative with their finances. How do you think we got into so much debt in the first place? Half of it is from loans we took out trying to keep up with their suggestions." "Kelly," Lenny hissed, but it was too late. I turned back to my parents. "What is she talking about?" My mom looked cornered, but my dad, who'd barely spoken all night, finally broke his silence. We may have encouraged Lenny to take out some loans. For the family, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you kidding me? I said, my voice rising. It was supposed to be temporary. My mother interjected, suddenly defensive. We thought if Lenny could help out, it would be easier for everyone. And then you started earning more, so we thought dash. You thought I'd just take over. I finished for her, disgusted. My mother's silence was all the confirmation I needed. And then, out of nowhere, my grandmother spoke again. That's not all, Mike. I turned to her, my heart sinking. What do you mean? She hesitated for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wasn't sure if I should bring this up, but after tonight, I think you need to see it. She handed me the paper. It was a bank statement from about a year ago, her bank statement. At first I didn't understand why she was showing it to me, but then my eyes fell on a series of large withdrawals. $2,000 here, $3,500 there, all adding up to tens of thousands over the course of 6 months. What is this? I asked, my voice tightening. That, she said, is my account. Your parents have been accessing it. I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Wait, what? How? Your mother had power of attorney for a while. Grandma explained. After your grandfather died, I was struggling with all the paperwork, so I let her handle it. I didn't realize she was using it to take money for herself. My mother jumped to her feet, her face red with anger. That's not true. I only took what we needed. Grandma didn't flinch. You mean what you needed? Not me. I didn't authorize any of those withdrawals. The room erupted. My dad tried to calm my mom down. Lenny and Kelly started arguing in whispers, and I just stood there, clutching the bank statement, feeling like my entire family was unraveling before my eyes. Then, out of nowhere, my grandmother said something that quieted the chaos. And before any of you tried to deny it, she said, her voice cutting through the noise, I've already contacted a lawyer. What? My mother gasped. I wanted to make sure my affairs were in order, Grandma said, looking directly at me. Mike, I'm appointing you my power of attorney. Effective immediately. The room fell silent. I don't trust anyone else with this, she continued. Not after everything that's come out tonight. I stared at her, my mind racing. Grandmother, are you sure? She nodded firmly. I've never been more certain of anything. I looked around the room. My parents were pale, Lenny was still processing, and Kelly looked like she was already planning her exit strategy. For the first time, I realized how deep this rabbit hole went and how much I needed to step up, not just for my grandmother, but for myself. And as I stood there holding that bank statement, I knew one thing for sure, this was far from over. After that night, everything changed. My grandmother and I did what we said we would. She made me her power of attorney and her finances were sealed. My parents were told they couldn't touch her money anymore, no excuses. As for me, I stopped giving handouts altogether. No more rent for Lenny and Kelly, no more bills for my parents, no more emergency money. At first they tried to test me. My mom called to ask for help with the electric bill, and Lenny called again about his rent, but I stood firm. Finally, the calls stopped. They got the message. I wasn't going to bail them out anymore. Our relationship isn't the same now. We still talk occasionally, but it's distant and awkward, especially because I know they're struggling financially. But I don't feel guilty anymore. They have to work things out for themselves. My grandmother and I, on the other hand, are closer than ever. She's doing well in her new home and we see each other regularly. She says she's proud of me for holding my own, and honestly, I'm proud of myself. Now, with the money I've saved, I can focus on my own life, traveling, investing, and building the future I want. It feels good to live without the weight of constant demands on my shoulders. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is set boundaries with the people you care about. But sometimes it's the only way to truly take care of yourself.